Damien McCabe ending that report by Rita O'Reilly. Now, Irish boxing has long been the jewel in the belt of our Olympic dreams, with Irish boxers bringing home 16 of the nation's 31 Olympic medals. But could the whiff of corruption, doping and match fixing at the international top of the amateur sport, along with creeping criminality around the Irish professional game, knock our Olympic boxing dreams out of the ring? Richard Downs reports.
Two boxers fighting for the right to be called the greatest. For hundreds of years, one of the world's favourite sports. However, it appears that not everyone is playing by the rules of boxing.
What's caused the present problem is the election of the new president of the AIBA, Gafur Rakimov of Uzbekistan. And he's what you might call a person of interest.
Boxing as an Olympic sport is in jeopardy.
Can you deprive thousands of young boxers, male and female now, can you deprive them of the hope and the will to go to an Olympic Games?
And in the professional world, Irish boxing has found itself linked with the most notorious criminality.
Within seconds of that bang, I saw people running left, right and centre coming out of that function room.
The Irish Amateur Boxing Association has strongly condemned the attack, which it says has nothing to do with the sport.
Does anyone play by the rules of boxing anymore? In any substantial town or city, it's a permanent fixture, the boxing club. The place to blow off steam, to get fit, for youngsters to learn discipline, maybe even to make a name for themselves.
Ireland has won more medals for boxing than for all the other sports combined in the Olympic Games. It's our speciality. But has the world turned against boxing because of its links with criminality and corruption? And will that deprive some of our best athletes of their chance of a medal in Tokyo 2020?
This is Gafur Rakimov. He's the acting head of the international amateur boxing body, AIBA, and is now on the verge of being named permanent president. But the US Treasury told Prime Time he provided material support to the Russian thieves-in-law criminal syndicate, an active international drug cartel he's accused of collaborating with. Allegations he vociferously denies. The International Olympic Committee, the IOC, is alarmed, and they've made it repeatedly clear that they're opposed to Mr. Rakimov's involvement in boxing because of the allegations of criminality. This is how the Olympics wants boxing to be presented. The amateur sports people excelling in their field. The IOC believes the allegations surrounding Mr. Rakimov make him unworthy to lead an organisation connected to the Olympic spirit. As a person sanctioned by the US Treasury, no American company can be associated with him, which could also affect Olympic sponsorship.
It's very hard for the IOC to back down now, because they have told the AIBA, don't go ahead with the election of this guy. He's tainted. He's a problem for your governing body. And they've gone ahead, so they've basically put it up to them. So what do they do now? But this is a sport, as I say, with a long Olympic history. It's going back to 1904. So it would be a huge decision to drop it. But they could well drop it.
A key rule of boxing is establish your jab early. That's exactly what Michael Conlan did every time he entered the ring. But in Rio 2016, it was widely believed that his bout was wrongly judged, and he lost his one and only chance of winning an Olympic medal.
In the blue corner.
Oh my goodness. Unanimous decision.
Absolutely incredible decision.
My dream's been shattered now. Amateur boxing stinks. From the core right to the top.
We remember what happened at those Olympics with some very dubious decisions, particularly the one when Michael Conlan was beaten, and we remember how Michael Conlan reacted. But after those Olympics, all 36 referees and judges at those games were sidelined because of an investigation into what went on, because it was seen that there was a lot of dubious decisions or questionable decisions, so that faith in the governing body has been badly eroded.
That's an horrendous decision. That's an absolute robbery.
That is scandalous.
But even though he accepts there were some contentious decisions made in Rio, Ireland's most senior boxing judge, a former president of the Amateur Boxing Association here, says the allegations of corruption are over-egged.
When the forensic analysis was made of the bouts in Rio, it was by no means that it was a whole corrupt business. It was just a small section of the bouts that looked to be dubious, but most of them were perfectly correct.
So why they clean that then? Why did they
cleaned out the referees and judges afterwards because they had to be seen to be doing something, both in the interest of PR or whatever it was.
Another rule of boxing is be nimble on your feet, keep moving. A small number of brilliant amateurs make it into the professional sport. But the current situation in professional boxing in Ireland has its own and arguably separate set of problems. Chief among those is the spectre of gangland violence.
The last few years have been very depressing for Irish professional boxing. There was a shooting at the Regency Hotel when away in before a fight, and the reported target was Daniel Kinahan. Daniel Kinahan was one of the people behind what is now MTK Global. His family have long-term gangland links, and he has become a major player in boxing. Now, MTK say he's no longer involved with them, that there's been a management buyout.
MTK stands for Mac the Knife, and the person behind the buyout is Sandra Vaughan, who announced a boycott of Irish media and an end to Irish events because of what she says is unfair coverage of the company.
Today, legal letters will be issued on my behalf to a number of Irish media houses relating to inaccurate and untrue articles about Daniel Kinahan's relationship to MTK, and will initiate legal proceedings against all and any defamatory coverage going forward. Despite announcing MTK Global cutting ties with Mr Kinahan in February 2017 and announcing the complete management buyout by myself in October of last year, the Irish media continue to sensationalise and slander MTK Global and our boxers, and I cannot and will not allow this to continue.
In addition to the Regency Hotel shooting, boxing has experienced other gangland-style attacks.
This year, you had a shooting out at the National Stadium in Dublin when an underage boxing event was going on inside and 2 people were injured. In Bray Boxing Club a couple of months later, Bobby Messett, who was there for a fitness session, a completely innocent bystander, was shot dead, and Pete Taylor, who was one of the best boxing coaches in Ireland, was injured. And even though these incidents mightn't all be directly linked to boxing, in the public eye, boxing has become toxic.
While there is some professional boxing happening in the south, it's fair to say that it's relatively small scale. The big action is taking place north of the border.
Great night. Irish boxers on the next level. The next year, a couple of years, is going to be fantastic for Irish boxing.
And yet it's all happening in Belfast, isn't it?
It's all happening in Belfast now at the minute. There's so many people coming in.
I think because of the investment of MTK, they've pumped a lot of money into local fighters, local venues, bringing a lot of boxing TV to Belfast. So I genuinely think that's why.
And it's on a bit of a roll as a result.
Oh, it's massive, absolutely massive. They're fully behind us, fully supportive.
Boxing is absolutely buzzing in Belfast. This is our fighter, Paddy Gallagher, both his belts. This is one Celtic belt at welterweight and one at late middle, so he's now the Celtic champ. This is Jeremy McManus, his boxing coach. I'm a strength and distance coach. Boxing's only going up.
It's simply inconceivable that a fight card like this would be allowed in Dublin. The nexus between gangland and boxing is simply too strong. It's too much of a risk.
There was a show scheduled for City West a few months ago, and it had to be pulled because there's 5 MTK fighters on the bill, and the Gardaí were going to send 6 armed units there as a safety precaution, and eventually the Gardaí told them to pull it because they were worried about going ahead.
That's the state of play in professional boxing in Ireland at present. The amateur sport here has different concerns. And even though the local is always important, the high politics of international amateur boxing is becoming a worry. Mick Dowling coaches in the community-based programmes, often run on a shoestring and credited with doing such good work in deprived and needy communities.
If you have a young fighter and you're coaching him and his aim is for to go to the Olympic Games, and here the rug is pulled from under him because of something that's happening out in Uzbekistan or in the USA or somewhere, that's just not fair.
But the conflict between AIBA and the International Olympic Committee continues. The Olympic Federation of Ireland is monitoring events and agrees that unless changes are made, there are likely to be serious consequences for boxing, which they say is concerning with less than 2 years to go to the next Olympics.
Are you a bit complacent in this area?
No, we're not complacent at all. It's just that the power is not with the federations. And the people who have the power, the establishment who've been there for many, many years, they're the people who make all the decisions. Although when it comes to the Congress, the votes take place. And if enough federations decide to vote for the guy from Kazakhstan, he will win. And that's what the position is. And also the business about corruption can be exaggerated an awful lot.
For those who love the sport, either as fighters themselves or as spectators, the idea that there wouldn't be boxing in the Olympics is just inconceivable. The tradition is so long, over 100 years old. But the shadow of corruption and criminality in the professional and the amateur sport has made the prospect of empty rings in Tokyo a real possibility.
It seems extraordinary that AIBA would go ahead with the election of Gafur Rakhimov. But he's been climbing up the ranks of international boxing for decades and has many friends. The election is in 2 weeks' time in Moscow. The nominations are closed, and there's only one name on the ballot.